how did all of that just happen? Because like my body just knew what to do, and I was just like, oh man, like I'm doing it. Like I'm like Bob, look, I was like, I was so stoked.
What is up, my friends? Thanks again for tuning in. This is the Scoped Exposure Podcast. I am very excited for today's episode for a few reasons. Obviously, this is a music podcast, so it's a hardcore podcast. But I think one of the earliest things that I always try to do is like kind of do the crossing of worlds for other interests that, it's either very apparent that people involved in the hardcore community are involved in, or it's kind of subtly noted within their socials or whatever. And, I've been a big fan of Space for a minute now, and we've had Lexi on the show, we've had Donnie on the show, and I got to play with Space late last year. And, I'm also a big Bev and coffee person, as anyone who listens to the shows obviously understands, but I got to rub shoulders a little bit with John, a little bit more one-on-one, and learn a little bit about his background in coffee and just doing different things in Buffalo. And when I was thinking about I think honestly what have prompted this of doing more coffee related guests was my interview with Grayson from Bruiserweight and the Beans and Breakdown podcast. And I know that John's been on there before, so that was definitely a podcast I listened to, in research for the episode. But I'm just stoked for the conversation. I think it's gonna be a really good time. So without further ado, the Buffalo-based man himself, John of Space, on the Scope Exposure Podcast. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm beyond stoked. I was actually thinking of when we were hanging out with each other in Oklahoma. At that cafe, I was doing some work for the coffee shop I work for, and you just sat down and we just started chatting. It was a great time.
Sometimes, like, in my mind, I'm always like, I don't know if I'm imposing on like someone in the midst of that, but sometimes that is like the very fruitful, wholesome beginnings of like a good friendship.
Oh yeah. And anything to get me away from a little work too.
Right. Anything for me to maybe procrastinate a little bit. It is funny, like how at the fest in Tulsa, it's changed names a number of times, but how like that happened with us. And even a year prior, when I wasn't playing but I was filming it, I'm thinking of I had a similar interaction where I was trying to edit the day before, and someone was like, hey, is it cool? I was like, yeah. And now we're like the best of buds. So it's kind of funny about just taking that, seeing the opportunity and just taking it there. But John, I'm stoked to have you. Obviously, we're going to chat about hardcore. We're going to chat about coffee. We're going to chat about a lot of good stuff that I have here on the dock. But, as always, it's a tradition to check a bev before getting to the episode. Seems like you are, for the visual people watching the episode, you're tuning in from, very sunny day in Buffalo, it looks like.
Very sunny day. I want to say it's like a crisp, like 70 degrees out, a little bit overcast, but it's great outside. I'm at the park, Glen Falls Park, which is like right down the hill from the cafe, fresh off a shift, and I'm ready to talk and check my bev.
Right.
Yeah.
Show it.
I'm drinking with my best mom ever mug. I'm drinking it's a coffee we call the Day Drinker. It's an Ethiopian anaerobic process coffee. It's out of this world. It's cooled down a bit since I made it, just because I was a little busy, but it is still hitting the same.
Mm-hmm. I was listening on your convo with Grayson where you're talking about like, do you have like a tried and true mug? Do you have like a bunch that you kind of cycle through?
Yeah.
Is that the mug?
So that's not the mug.
Okay.
That mug is the one I keep at home. That's the one I drink my morning cup of every day before I go to work. It's an Oxford pennant mug, and it just says "I wish I've never heard of Oxford pennant" on it. It's you know how diner mugs are usually like thick, like they're this one is thin, and it's like I'd say the thickness of a normal mug, and it holds like the perfect amount of coffee for me. But this mug is this my best mom ever mug is a replacement mug. Actually, when I was I don't remember if it was my birthday or something, but my coworkers, I managed one of the cafes here in Buffalo, and my coworkers got me a mug that says "Not the worst boss," and I thought it was hilarious. And
Right.
when I was gone in when we were on tour in Europe last year, I came back and I went to go drink out of it, and it was gone. And they're like, "I'm sorry, we broke it on accident,
Oh
but
no.
we got you a replacement mug
And we
that
went for
says best
the
mom
best
ever."
mom ever.
Yes, so because I am sometimes, I guess, referred to as the Overwinter mom or the cafe mom or something of that nature. But
Yeah.
so that's the story behind this mug.
There's band dads, and then there's, mom managers, I guess. So
Exactly,
yeah.
momager. You know
Momagers.
it.
Yeah. It's funny. I guess like there's definitely like certain mugs that, like me and my wife are like big supporters of like a lot of local like ceramicists.
Mhm.
So when they do like, a new drop, we're always like, oh, are we gonna add another mug into our line of just so many
Dude,
different things?
tell me about it.
Yeah. And then there's, it's just it's a vicious cycle where it's like you get some stuff to support your friends, and then you're getting fed all this stuff in the algorithm, and then I'm getting like notifications off a ceramicist in Nashville who is married to a tattoo artist, and he'll like paint on the mug. So I got her for
Oh,
our anniversary like just a super awesome like traditional like bald eagle like on this like perfect like I think it's like a 16 ounce like it's actually back here. Let me just grab it.
it's a big mug.
Yeah. I wish I knew the person's IG handle off the top of my head, but that's essentially
Yo,
what it looks like.
that is
So
sick.
yeah, this is like the one that if I was the one to break it or anything like that, I would be crushed. So I'm just gonna place it over
Yeah,
here, out of reach for the rest of the
safe
episode.
place. Yeah.
Yeah. But speaking of mugs and just coffee related things, I was, my in-laws were in town, all the way from Western Canada over to Eastern Canada, where me and my wife are staying, and we just went up to an Airbnb, and there was like, like the plastic mugs that are kind of like, oh, these are just like the cabin mugs that, if you throw away or whatever.
Yeah.
I poured my coffee, and then I poured my coffee, I turned because I was like making breakfast, and I went back, and then I was like, oh, like it's creating a ring around it. And I was like, oh, did I like spill around it? And then I would wipe it, and then I would like top it up again. Or I didn't even top it up. I just like went back away, came back to the coffee to like go and drink it. And it was like, I'm like, something is leaking or something's going on.
Oh
And
no.
I think it was so thin that the micro cracks in this is just like a plastic mug. It's anything crazy, but
Yeah.
it was just like seeping just ever so slightly through.
Bummer.
So yeah, it
was time for a new mug at that point.
yeah, I was like, I think
Yeah.
I should just throw this in the garbage for this Airbnb owner, just so it's like, this mug is not serving you well by any means. I am drinking coffee as well, and I feel like this
Tight.
is a nice like opener kind of thing, because I definitely wanted to drink something of quality and something that's local to me. So this is the coffee spot that's like really, really close to where I'm staying. It's called Backroads Coffee Roaster, and it's their cold
Whoa.
brew twist. So it's cold brew, coffee, and lemonade, and they do all these little ones.
Dude, a nice little shandy.
Mm-hmm.
That rocks.
And I tried to get my coworker on the whole idea of doing the espresso and orange juice kind of thing. I notoriously was a a hater of it for years. But then I tried it. I was like, okay, I understand why people are into it.
Dude,
it's like
yep.
not the thing that I always want to drink, but like if it was an option, I'm like, yeah, sure, I can fuck with that. But I've never done the cold brew lemonade. I don't know if you have any thoughts, perspective, or ideas on these kind of things as a coffee man yourself.
It belongs.
It belongs.
It belongs. I'll say it that way. It's like a pineapple on pizza kind of a thing. You know, like
That's
you
a
either love it
perfect
or you
analogy.
hate it.
Yes.
You know? But dude, it's awesome. Over the summer, not this past summer, but or I guess it's still summer because first of fall is on Saturday.
Yeah.
But we have like a secret menu that rotates in the cafe, and last year we did lemonade has like always been on the secret menu during the summer, and a big thing was like you would get one of the fruity pour overs. Like we have the blueberry. One year we had a coffee called. We give our coffees like fun names, by the way. They're not just
right.
like sometimes the tasting notes are like in the name, like the blueberry or the strawberry, but like some of the coffees are like the invisible path or the hidden trail or stuff like that. But a big secret menu item was you would get an ice pour over of one of the fruitier coffees, and you'd get it topped off with lemonade, and it's great.
Bro,
it's great.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So I want to know how this is.
Well, I'll cheers to you first at the very least.
Cheers.
If I don't do that, then it's going to be bad juju for the rest of this episode. Oh, dude, that was synchronized. At least on my end. I don't know if it was on Jordan.
It was. Good job. We didn't even plan it. Oh, I got a little ant in my coffee.
Oh, get that
out of there.
That is, you know what's funny? This is like, I don't like iced tea personally, but this is like the closest like to that I can kind of
that you would go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cold brew and lemonade. Yeah.
What's that joint called again?
The spot?
Yeah.
I'll send it to you after. It's called Backroads Coffee. Port Credit,
Sick.
Ontario.
Yeah.
Dope spot.
I love it.
Yeah. So John, obviously, you know, we're getting, you know, off the rails with a few different things here, but I always like to kind of make sure that, you know, we cover some of the origin basis, especially if you're a new guest here on the show. So, you know, talk to me about like some of the early times where you were, you know, like whether it was first discovering music, first discovering like hardcore or just alternative music in general. Talk to me about like kind of what initially put you on the path.
Cool. All right. So I come from a family of musicians. My dad plays guitar. My uncle plays guitar. He's a luthier, so he builds guitars.
Oh, okay, cool.
So like music has always been in my life from a very young age. I was not allowed to really listen to anything but the Beatles and Fountains of Wayne. If you're familiar with them, you know Stacy's mom.
Oh, okay, that's them.
That's Fountains of Wayne. They have an incredible discography, but basically my life from as early as I can remember to, I want to say like 6th, 7th grade, was just straight up the Beatles and Fountains of Wayne. And that was the only music I thought ever existed, ever. Right. My dad is a huge classic rock head. So, you know, the Stones, the Beatles, I'm blanking on David Bowie, you know, big David Bowie guy. So like it was a lot of classic rock for me. And my mom, like, you know, Frank Sinatra, Chris Isaak. So it was like we're playing it safe at the Vaughan household, you know? So in 6th grade, there was a school down the street from me, or I guess you could say down the street from my school. I went to a Catholic school, Saints Peter and Paul, which is also right down the street from the cafe. But there was a school that closed, and some of their kids came from their school over to mine, and we were like assigned a buddy, and I was assigned, or that sounds so materialistic. Like I was assigned a person, but like, you know what I mean?
That
Like
was very common for me in school. Like we were talking over, you know, when we were out in the Airbnb, how like, I don't know nowadays if like schools have like reading buddies where it's like someone from senior years is like, and nowadays people jump to like, oh, that's a sus kind of thing. But it's like before that was just so normal back then.
You had bus buddies too. Like if it's your first time taking the bus, like, you know, an older person. I digress. So my buddy, his name was Reed, and I guess Reed, if you're listening to this for whatever reason, I'd love to meet up. I can't find this dude on the internet anywhere, but maybe he listens to your podcast. I've since like disconnected, but he also played bass. So like I started playing bass in fourth grade because my school band had 7 guitar players and no bassist. And they wouldn't allow an 8th guitar player, so I was kind of forced into bass from a young age. But he also played bass.
Did Reed make it cool for you? In a way,
Reed made it cool, dude. Okay. Like, and Reed was a punk, and I didn't know what that was, but like I remember going over to he loved horror movies, you know, and like just heavier music, and I was like, oh, you know, the Beatles and VeggieTales. You know, it was kind of like so. But like,
dude, the VeggieTales intro kind of slaps though.
100%.
That holds up for sure. Yeah.
So I would hang out with Reed, and it's like, hey, have you ever heard of this band called Every Time I Die? And I go, no. And he goes, well, listen to this. And he showed me Werewolf, and I was like, this is insane. Mm-hmm. And I remember I downloaded that song on my iPod, and it was just that. So like that was quite literally my first introduction to hardcore music. And that's all it really was for a long time. I was huge on, so like later when I discovered what iTunes was and that like I could get music off of there, you know, I was really big into Green Day. So that was like I was into Anti-Flag. I guess that's redacted now. But those were like my 2 punk origins, were those 2 bands. As is, I think, for like a lot of kids, you know, at a young age. But getting into hardcore was really just like I gotta have to chalk it up to ETID, because like that's all I really knew. I wasn't big on exploring music at a younger age. Like if I knew what I liked, that's all I really listened to. And so Werewolf is off the Big Dirty. So like I listened to the Big Dirty a few times, and I was like, this is cool. And I expanded on that. And I went to one of their infamous Christmas shows at a smaller venue that doesn't exist anymore. It's called the Waiting Room. I want to say it was like maybe like a 400 cap room. And it was, I went in college. I think it was a sophomore in college. And it was the second, they sold the first show out in like 10 seconds per use. Cause you know, big band, small room, you know, it's like, you can't really compete with that. So so they're like, hey, surprise, we're adding another show, sold out. So 2 shows in one night sold out. Then they're like, hey, we're doing the same thing the next day. Here's more tickets. So I'm like, all right, I'll take my chance with the other 1,600 tickets. Got one, you know, and I went with my buddy, and it was awesome. And off of that, I guess I just started listening to bands that my friends were recommending to me through college. And, you know, the years went on, and I was getting tattooed by Donnie. Dan was dating Lexi. They were getting tattooed by Donnie. Joe, Dan, and I played in an old pop punk band together. So we've been playing music for a while. And like, when the idea of Space was conceived, it was just more or less like, hey, let's get together and like crank out some tunes and see what happens. Like, we just want to have fun, kind of a thing. And I was like, oh, cool. And I've been exposed to so much more music and hardcore music in the past 3 years of my life than I have probably in like the past 26.
Right.
It's crazy. Like just from like touring all the time, seeing all the bands that like we play with, and just, you know, whoever's on DJ in the van, just like throwing something on, and it's awesome. So like, I guess you could say my origin story is my friend Reed. I just gave his first and last. I probably, you know.
Well, we could probably we'll probably bleep the last one if you can mark that,
Cool.
Jordan. But
Yeah.
like, to your credit, like, you know this man's first and last name, and you're struggling to find him, to even just pay him like an honest conversation of like, yo, thanks for like being nice, because that's like something that's so ingrained to me is like, you know, a show could just be like a Tuesday to a lot of us who have been in this shit for like double digits worth of years, but that show could be the beginning point of someone's like origin story, and like being nice to that person, even though for you it's like, oh, that was kind of an awkward conversation, to them it could mean the world to be able to talk to the singer of X band, even for 5 minutes. So yeah, again, it's like there's no like Reed was probably like, oh, like we kind of like the same levels of music. And like, did you know that E-Tid was a Buffalo band when you were showing them initially, or did you learn that, you know, over time?
He probably told me, but I can't remember for certain. But I will say, like, later, like he was on Facebook for a while, and like that's how we kept in touch post middle school or whatever. And I remember at one point he's like, hey, like, I'm looking to play music again. Also, he's like a phenomenal bassist. He was playing shit in the 6th and 7th grade that I probably still can't play now. Like, this dude, he was like a prodigy. It's insane. But it was probably like middle of high school, so like sophomore year. He messaged me. He's like, hey, like, I'm looking to play in a band, maybe. Like, have you ever heard of Code Orange Kids? I was like, no. And he's like, well, this is the shit I want to play. I was like, and he sent me a link. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, this is insane. Right. And like at that time, I was probably still like jamming a fucking like 21st Century Breakdown. I thought it was the greatest record like to ever come out of music history or whatever. So yeah, that's just another story there about music, I guess, and Reed. Yeah.
So I guess like it was a question on my list here, as far as like, because a lot of people that find themselves as the bass player of a band are usually like a guitarist, where it's like, you know, there's already 2 guitarists and we need to have a bassist, so I'll do that. But then, you know, there's I think a really good bass player of a band is almost like the seasoning of like a great recipe. It's like just a little bit of extra effort versus just I'm playing the root note of everything can really go a long way, for sure. So I guess like it sounded like bass was initially introduced to you because there were so many goddamn guitar players in your school. But what made you want to like keep up like post in doing that? Have you always played bass in bands, or did you kind of dabble with 6 strings as well?
I started playing guitar. I got my first guitar when I was 7. It was an acoustic guitar. And that's like, you know, my dad played guitar, my uncles played guitar. It was just kind of like, you know, the thing, like that's what dad's
doing. You come from a musical family. That's like the Xbox of the family.
Yes,
in a way.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but like we mentioned, school band was like, hey, you need to play bass if you want to be in here. And I was just like, okay, whatever, you know? And then it was just kind of like, I always wanted to play guitar. That was it. But I was in high school, and my friend Jorian was like, hey, like, I play guitar. Like, and I was playing bass in the jazz band in high school at that point too. I was like, I might as well keep it going. Like, bass is fun. Like, I think probably tail end of middle school, or like in my 8th grade era, I was like, you know, bass is kind of cool. You know, I'm getting used to it. And he was like, hey, like, you play bass, I play guitar, like, maybe we should write some songs to start a band. So my friend Jorian, like, we were in our first band together, and I was playing bass in that, and I have played bass in every project I've ever been a part of forever. I've never played guitar in a band. And honestly, that's fine, because like bass is sick, dude. It's so much fun. And like, yeah, I played bass in every band.
That's wild.
There was a moment where I was possibly going to play guitar in a band, but that didn't happen, and I stuck with bass. And I was fine with it. It's a ton of fun, and it's just bass is best, I think.
Bass is best.
Yeah,
but like I think like I think it's partly just maybe a little bit of my ADHD, because like I've kind of bounced around from, I'm mainly a guitarist for sure.
Yeah.
That's what I did the lessons. I burned through a lot of different teachers because I was like, show me how to play this weird Slipknot sound versus scales. Like, I don't give a fuck about scales. But I definitely, when I talk to people, I'm a guitarist, but I've played bass in a number of bands, and I've dabbled in drums here and there. But when in the projects that I played bass, like, I think the first one was like a super just generic, like just like rise core kind of metalcore. Like, it was just breakdowns and jump in place kind of shit. But like at the time it was like, oh, this is just like, it's way, like when I see a bass player who's just kind of like a statue and they're just kind of doing that and they're awesome, like that's cool. But when I see a bassist who is like technically proficient and they're like taking the opportunity of like not having to, play the 4 bars of like the new riff and just like kind of moving around and doing that, like, you mentioned Code Orange. Like, I think they have inarguably like one of the most entertaining bassists to watch when he's just like, when it was not frontman Jamie Code Orange and they're all like in their positions, like I considered him the frontman of a band in a way. Yeah. Because he would go and just like grab people and pull them on stage. But yeah, I think it's like a very underestimated role in a band, whether you play just regular 4/4 hardcore, or you play like an off branch of something heavy music wise. Like I think a lot of people look at it still in that way of how you were saying, like, oh, I got deemed the bass player role, but I secretly wanted to be a 6-string aficionado.
Yeah, dude, and what I love about space is like we're a bit weird. We can be funky at times, and like that gives me the opportunity to just kind of like play the weird stuff, like do some pull-offs, because like who else does that? I don't know. But dude, bass rocks. And like I'm not a huge gearhead. I do enjoy a pedal or two. I have like I have a few effect pedals on in my chain, and it's just, that's the other thing. It's like people sometimes associate pedals and effects strictly to guitar, and that doesn't have to be the case. Like, every bass player, regardless of what genre you play, should always have a chorus pedal. Got to have a chorus pedal. I threw a tremolo pedal on my board because why not like have a little da, 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 it's even if it's in like an ass hair of a part, you know what I mean? Like I play like maybe 2 notes with it on. It's just like, wait a minute, you can be just as head turning as any guitar player. Sure. And you just got to have fun with it. And that's it, just have fun with it.
Yeah. And I think like, I just love the serendipity of like how things happen with like just life in general, and this podcast specifically. Like, we spent a couple of weeks kind of setting this up, and then like, now that we're sitting down and doing this, literally yesterday, I went out and bought, the first in a long, long time, just a regular ass Squire P bass. And the reason for that is, this podcast is coming out. We're going to drop it this Friday, if that's cool. Okay with you.
Totally fine.
But that weekend is going to be Hold Your Ground weekend, and the band, AOG, I normally play guitar in it, but our bassist unfortunately can't make it, and we only found that out like a couple weeks ago. So I was like, I'll play bass. And even just getting it and then practicing, it's like, I think people just look at it as like, oh, it's just less strings and it's an octave lower, but it's like, I think about when Steph Yurkova came on the podcast, like so many, like she was like season 1, like I don't think we were even 25 episodes deep, but when she was playing bass in Regional Justice Center, like she was talking about like it, like strings are thicker, like your hands hurt after playing for like a long time, especially if you're like down picking and you're like really giving her. It's like, it's a way different. It's like the classic, like same but different. And I feel like it should be difficulty and expertise wise, it should be on the same level as a proficient guitar player as well, for sure.
Yeah, dude. Only downstrokes on bass is hard. Like if you're playing punk music or hardcore or whatever, like you got to be aggressive, and like you could have the most stamina in the world, but like just especially at like a pretty high BPM or whatever, it's tough. And like you said, strings are thicker, so like your fretting hand is like, if you're moving around or even just holding down a note, like if you're into it, you're pressing hard and it hurts. Yeah, you're right.
But I think it is like an equal, like I think any instrument in any band has that kind of like, hardcore is like one of the only music genres that has that like super gratifying feeling when it's like fully a soloed part, whether it's like only bass, only drums, or only guitar. It's almost like a primitive nature for everyone just like to act out. And I feel like bass especially, it's just like once people feel that rumble from down under, they're just like, you know, an animal starts to come out for sure. But
it does, man.
Yeah. So let's talk about space specifically, because I think an idea to reach out to you to set this podcast up is you guys just announced that the next LP for you guys will be coming out on Revelation, which is like so fucking sick, and hella congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really funny how it came together, but you know, I'm glad it is coming together the way that it is. You know,
because not too long ago, you guys dropped those two songs, Boomerang and Cycle. I'm blanking
Killer,
on the Cycle Killer. So I don't know if those were prior to the discussions of that. I don't know if you can even say as far as like when I guess like first beginnings of that came to be, because it seems like a lot of signings can happen either right after a past release, or they happen really quickly, but then people have to be silent for a long time. So I don't know anything you want to say to just like the acquisition and just like what initially put Spaced on their radar.
Yeah, so you're right. The signing did come shortly after we put out those two singles, and when we were writing those songs, we had in mind like, hey, we should maybe write an LP. Like we should do like a full length, like 10 track kind of a thing. So we wrote Boomerang and Cycle Killer, which were quite literally labeled in the demo file song 1 and song 2, or new song 1, new song 2. And we kept writing, and I don't know, I can't really remember like what halted the demoing process, if it was shows or like you know, we couldn't get together for whatever reason, but like we're like, hey, maybe we should just like put these two out to like make sure, or let people know we're not like, let people know we're still, you know, grinding, and like we're not going away anytime soon.
Right.
So we went up to Canada. We recorded with our boy Davis Maxwell, and when we were recording those, we you know, we probably had a few other songs demoed out, but then we started. We did some one-offs. We played some shows. We were talking to. We were actually talking to someone else before we were talking to Rev, and like we showed them Boomerang and Cycle Killer, and they're like, "Yo, this is awesome! Like, we'll talk to you later." And then the way we got to talking to Rev was because of the lawyer we were talking to. Like, also was talking, or was also I don't know if they're like Revelation's lawyer, but like they worked with Rev before, and they're like, hey, like maybe you guys should talk. Whoa, sorry, Bumblebee just like came out between my legs. It kind of spooked me.
You just birthing a bumblebee. Shout out nature.
Yeah. so then we started talking to Revelation, and the deal was just like kind of there, and it was kind of like a no-brainer. Like the first one was kind of going to be like a big jump for us, kind of like a longer of a contract, and we didn't know if we were really looking to like full on commit to something at the moment. And this deal was kind of like a no-brainer, and everyone kind of wants a star on their shirt, and we were like I've said it like 5 times now, but it was just it was the right one, and we talked about it. We weighed out the pros and cons to the first one versus the second one. Second one being Rev landed with them, and we signed the contract, and we were working on the songs like all through that time. We recorded I think 7 songs over at GCR in Buffalo with our friend Jay Zubricki. We announced the signing, I think like maybe the week before they got sent out for mastering. So like it's done. We're just waiting. We're waiting to put it out. We're waiting for a few things in terms of like promo on our end and like getting some other stuff tied up. I'm so excited. They're like some of the coolest songs that like I think we've written. It's gonna be sick. It's just, and I tell this, like I have a pretty good relation with a lot of my customers over at the cafe, and I tell them about my life and like what I got going on, and they're like, "Hey, you were gone for 3 months. Where were you?" And I was like, "Oh, I was
in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, I was in Europe." And there, and like throughout the discussions between the first label we were talking to and Rev, like one of my customers is a lawyer, and he's a very insightful human, and I was just kind of like, he'd come in every morning right when I open, because I know I open pretty much all the time, and he'd be like, "What's the latest news? Like, what's the next decision?" And he was like, he was in on it, and he
was in on it without having to like charge you a fee on being in on it,
Dude, 100%. Yeah, and like the best part is like, I like it where the cafe is a very like suburban, like normal town,
right?
And like I grew up around here, so like it's weird because like it's typical barista fashion with me and my coworkers. We're like kind of got long hair, tatted out, like, and like everyone that comes in is like clean cut, they got their tie on, they're like, or whatever. And so like it's cool to talk about like the rock and roll side of my life with, for lack of a better term, a normie of a customer, and him to just be like fully in on it with me, because like but where I kind of forgot where the starting point for this was.
Oh, we were just talking about Rev, and then you were talking about the lawyer, and then then your lawyer friend, shout out to him, whoever his name is. Let's not say his
Kent.
first and last name as well. So
yeah, Kent. I'll just say Kent. Kent rocks.
Okay.
He rocks. That's where I was going with this. It's just sometimes hard to even wrap my head around. I guess you could say like the success that Spaced has had in like such a short amount of time. Because like I've been playing in bands since I was like 13, and that's like half of my life. I'm 26, so it's like, like you can now finally say like to your family members at Thanksgiving, where they are like, "Are you still doing the music thing?" You could be like, "Yes," and like kind of like with purpose, it's not just like, not that I should say that like people who aren't, on labels or touring or whatever aren't doing it with purpose, because they're obviously loving it and enjoying it and having the time of their lives. But like,
it's hit a personal degree of like, it is now like everything I've done up to this point is now worth it because of the scale as to which we can do things now. and I'm not having to
Thank
pay
you.
for shit out of pocket all of the time.
Yes.
And like we're
Yes,
playing
dude,
to
I know.
multiple hundreds of people, not just like the 10 friends that I know from the whatever.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
to
Thank
all
you
the
for taking the words out.
yeah, and I think like the normies, that is still so strange because it's like they'll go to like my parents are going to like a huge concert at like Rogers Arena tonight, and that's going to be to like thousands of people, and that is like a benchmark of success versus like for
Yeah.
me, I'm easy. I just want to play like heavy riffs and have strangers that I don't know go off to it anywhere out in the world, and that would be like if anyone is able to get to that level, whether it's to thousands of people or just to 100 kids, but it's all across the country or continent or world, like that's still like I think success should just be measured differently for like
Yes.
not
100%.
genre, but just the person that of their own personal goals.
Oh my God. Yeah. And like, you know, when you start to tell people like, oh, you play music and you're in a band, they're like, oh, like, do you play around here a lot? Like, do you play at like the bars around here that you normally see like cover bands at and stuff like that? It's like, not that kind of band. And like, it's cool to see like, I guess you could say like that facet of my life implanted now into other people that
Right.
may not have experienced such a thing if they didn't know who I am. And I'm not trying to say I'm like an influencer or anything, but it's a cool like butterfly effect kind of a thing, I guess.
Totally.
I guess.
It's
Yeah,
the type of people that come in, they're like, "Oh, remember me when you're famous," and you're like, even if I was to get famous and I was playing a This Is Hardcore level event, I'm not gonna be like, I gotta stop the set to shout out this one dude that always believed in me in the coffee shop days. Like,
yeah,
you know, that's where you have the interpersonal things.
Yeah.
But you know, it is a funny like. First off, just to kind of go back to the space stuff, like, yeah, like it's crazy to think that the lifespan of that band, at least from like its first release to now, like I'm very excited, and you know I've been, you know, stoked to see you guys like a few times now in the last couple of years, and not only seen but also got to play with as well. And I think you guys, like, no matter if you're billed like early in a fest or like later in the day, there's always like a literal like buzz in the air when you guys are playing, and I think like everyone is bringing that all to the table, and I'm happy to see such a cool acquisition on the Rev side, because you know, and it's also cool, like I wanted to hit on this too because you said it, like I love seeing when bands get to like take the branding and logos of whatever label that they're on, and they get to like intermingle them together. So like when Drain moved over to Epitaph and they kind of like did all this like shit with that, or like it's almost like a badge of honor when a band gets to print Close Casket or Triple B on the back with their, like, that is stuff that's like, that is really cool seeing those worlds like come together in that way as well.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's awesome. Like it's sometimes like you mentioned the Triple B thing. Like when I wear my exhibition shirt, it's like, it's two shirts, you know, it's an exhibition shirt and it's a Triple B shirt on the back, you know, it's, and like, it's kind of like a, oh my gosh, this is going to be a very oddly specific reference, but do you ever watch Between the Lions, like the young kid reading show?
I'm trying to remember.
It's okay
I've probably seen a clip or two.
Yeah, there is an episode where like one of the characters in the show had a hat, and one side was red and the other side was green, and like there was a character on either side, and there would be like, "Oh, I like your red hat." The other person's like, "It's a green hat." So it's like, it's an exhibition shirt. No, it's a Triple B shirt. You know, it's like, if someone's in front of me and behind me or whatever. So it's, the shirt, like, we get some shirts. Like, they're not designed or anything yet, but like, I'm stoked to see it, you know, like, it's like,
totally.
Yeah. It's going to be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously, like, you know, the purpose of like, you know, having you on is and to get the nitty and gritty details of like, when and how the LP is going to be rolled out. Is that something that realistically will see the light of day like early next year, or is that a still like there might be something at the end of 2023?
There might be something by the end of 2023, but I believe we're gonna try and push it for next year. I think the hope. I don't think I'm breaking any NDAs or anything there by saying it, because like we haven't even talked about a date, so I think it's still very like up in the air. So yeah.
Honestly, I love a band. I love a release first couple weeks of January when everyone's like fresh off the FYA, whether you attended or not, like hype, and then you know certain releases will start to, and then people start creating their mega list of the next year. Not like, I feel bad for bands that release stuff on like the last week of December. I'm like, guys, what do you just go 1 week out? Like that's
don't release anything like I think after Thanksgiving or even like the week before Thanksgiving. Like that's just
like maybe you can get away with early December sometimes. But
sometimes.
Like, like once it's like the Mariah Carey All I Want for Christmas weeks, like just avoid like any releases of any kind.
Yeah. Wow. Great way to put it. Once it's Mariah Carey season, it's not holiday season, it's not Christmas season.
Yeah,
it's Mariah Carey.
Dude, like I know that I'm gonna see it in like the next couple of months here, where it's like the meme of the popularity of that song, and it goes up and it goes straight down, and then it's like it makes its way back up. It's like it's happening. So yeah. Shout out to Mariah Carey, who will never hear this podcast.
I'll DM her. Don't worry. I'll send it over.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to talk, obviously about, the coffee side of your world, John. And, like, obviously we've made reference to, where you work, and we're going to get into some of the nitty and gritty with that. But something that I heard on with your interview and conversation with Grayson was you were saying that you were and I'm just kind of quoting you here, so I'm not like calling you out specifically, but I think you said something to the effect of you were a coffee asshole before working at a coffee shop. So
100%.
So can you break that down for the folks at home that might need more context to that statement, and kind of like what a coffee asshole in your eyes even is? Because I think that was just a very interesting thing, because I think from an outsider's perspective, you would think it's the latter, where you work at a shop and you get super fancy and elitist in a way.
Oh, yeah. So a coffee asshole is someone who, I guess you could say, like, won't drink anything but like the stuff. I'm not going to define it. I'm just gonna like kind of give a brief overview of my coffee origin story. The too long didn't read version. I drank a lot of shitty coffee in college, my first 2 years of college. And then my last 2 years of college, I didn't drink any coffee because it wasn't having an effect, or like, I'm putting all this like cream and sugar and stuff in my body, and like I shouldn't, because it's probably not that good for me. And so then I wasn't drinking coffee for a long time. And my friend Charlie, who also works with me at the cafe, when we were doing pre-production for one of our bands, he was like, hey, try this pour over of a Kenyan coffee, just straight up. And I was like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Mm-hmm. And I think you can kind of relate it to, like, once you are introduced to something new that you like at that moment are like, I have a deep love for this, I'm going to go all in. And that is going to be my personality for a little while, kind of a thing. Right. And it was for me. I was like, I got home and I was like, okay, like, I was like, Mom, do we have a French press somewhere? And she goes, why? And I was like, I'm getting into coffee. And she's like, coffee pot. I go, no, like, you don't know about it. You don't know. You don't get it. And so, like, I was trying the French press. And it wasn't doing it for me. And like, Charlie was my early coffee guru guide man. And we would go to
official title.
Yes, coffee guru guy man. we would go, like, before band practice, we would hit up this spot called Tipico, local Buffalo spot. We would go there for coffee, and I was kind of like getting into it there. Sometimes we would go to Public Espresso, which is also like down the street from our practice space. And I was kind of learning about it along the way. And while I was learning about it, my assholeness meter was decreasing because, once like it stopped becoming part of my personality and more of a hobby at that point. And don't get me wrong, I will probably never drink Folgers or Maxwell House or anything from a supermarket ever again in my life. I will go out of my way to get a good quality cup of coffee, but it's because it's something that I enjoy, I love, and have like a deep passion for, and so I was a coffee asshole because no one got what I was trying to say and talk about, but in retrospect, I didn't either because I was still learning. So it was kind of like an ignorance kind of a thing. And but once my girlfriend Jenna got me my pour over set that back in 2017, 2018 for Valentine's Day one year, and I was like, getting into it, like that I still use it to this day every morning. Like I was, doing my research. I was going to my local spots and getting their beans and, doing all that good stuff. And I'm still definitely an asshole, but I don't know if I'm necessarily just a coffee asshole now.
Sure.
But yeah. So it's coffee is complex, and I enjoy that. I enjoy I like the brain behind the coffee, I guess.
Yeah, and there's definitely times where it's like I'll walk into a specific coffee spot and it's like literally when me and my wife went on a road trip out to Atlantic Canada, like we went all the way to Nova Scotia and we stopped in Moncton and went to this place called Apoc Chemistry. This coffee shop doesn't even say roastery, coffee, anything like it. It just says Apoc Chemistry. And it was straight up like the best cup of coffee I ever had. And like
chemistry, it's science.
Dude,
yes.
It's straight up science. And like I definitely felt like I walked in and there's like all these like barista of the year awards or like, all this, like all the official stuff. I'm like, okay, this is more than just like we got good branding and cute little packaging. It's like, oh, we like know our shit like down to the fucking molecule. I'll definitely send you a link to that after because, if Spaced ever does an Atlantic Canada run, you have to just make sure you go to Moncton and go to that spot. But like when I'm in those kind of like, I can imagine that there's places where there is someone who's running that space is going to think, oh, like we're better than the, maybe more like mom and pop chalkboard wall kind of coffee spot. So we have to kind of, like not like gatekeep, but like, there's a bit of an attitude. But it was just very cool listening to your conversation and clearly even here on our podcast about how that's not the thought process of where you work. It was almost encouraged of the opposite. Like we need to, be educated, but we need to like make sure that people like feel like welcomed and like to essentially entice that curiosity for whatever level that is for that person.
Yeah, definitely. Like I remember I haven't even mentioned it. The spot that I work at is called Overwinter Coffee in Buffalo. I manage the Williamsville location. And quick tangent. I listened to the episode you did with Joey recently, and Koyo has come into that cafe like a handful of times while I've been working.
Oh, okay.
And I never mentioned that I played in Spaced. I was just kind of like, hey, you're Koyo. And they're just like, yeah. And don't get me wrong. Like they weren't cool guying me by like any means. Like I'd just be like, oh, you're in Koyo. Like I like your band a lot. And they'd be like, oh, thank you. Like I wasn't trying to get recognized by any means.
Right. Like in my own cafe.
Yeah, in my own cafe. But so I guess shout out to those guys for always coming in and getting coffee when they're in the city. And I'm sorry that your shit got stolen. And I'm also sorry that you got in that car accident on the way leaving my city. That I hereby banish the Koyo curse from Buffalo.
Praise be.
Yeah, praise be.
Blessings.
But Overwinter is awesome, man. It's a very like approachable atmosphere, I think. Like I mentioned earlier, we name our coffees kind of like fun, witty things. So like, because I've been to cafes where it's like, oh, I'll have, the Ethiopian, or I'll have the Colombian natural process, not the Colombian wash process. And like, for people who are trying to get into coffee that only know that the country of where that coffee is from exists, but not like the other things. And right. It can be intimidating, that's why we name the coffee fun things. So like, it could be a little more identifiable, and it could be a good talking point if you're curious about them. And then we could go into a conversation from there. And like, all of our cafes are super cute. They're very warm feeling. You just want to like sit down and like read for a little while. And like, all of my staff are like some of the nicest people in the world that will like talk your ear off about, not only our coffee, but like the tea that we have, all of the syrups we make, and our chai and all that good stuff. And like, my two bosses, Ben and Josh, they are awesome guys. They let me go rock. You know what I mean? Like they let me tour, and like, I'm like forever grateful for that. They both played in bands as kids. Like Josh did some touring himself. Like, it's a very cool spot, great work environment. I love my squad, and it's awesome. Coffee doesn't have to be scary. And if you're looking to get into it, hit me up. I guess. And we'll talk about coffee.
Yeah. Well,
for some reason,
what do I do? Like, you're still here.
Okay, cool. So I
just end the call immediately.
No, I
swiped. Or go out on a high note, I guess. I love my squad. See ya. It is funny because, like, again, like, I feel like the time in Oklahoma is where we like first kind of formally got introduced, but we've seen stuff at Hold Your Ground and some other things.
Over at Cirque.
Yes, Cirque Coffee. Shout out.
Shout out Cirque.
So what's interesting from that moment to this one is like, unexpectedly, like not really realizing that I was going to be out in Ontario. And I've had a few odd, like, my background is mainly in like marketing, video, social media, all the stuff that like I'm naturally like very good at, obviously. But in the midst of me moving, I also kind of got like a part-time gig at just a coffee spot that I knew the owner when my parents moved here. It's not the one that I'm drinking today. I did apply. They didn't hire me. But that hasn't,
that's their problem.
That's their problem. But like, I've been supporting them literally like multiple times a week since that. But I got this job, and I thought it was like, yeah, like it would be nice to kind of like learn some new things when it comes to coffee, just because of, having access to like a proper espresso machine for like doing all that. So yeah, there's been a lot of different things that I've been doing and just learned a lot, and almost realized like how much more I have to learn in that. But I guess like something I wanted to talk to you about is like, what is like, because if we're thinking about like knowledge of coffee, and there's like almost like a tier of like different things, and there's the people kind of at the bottom who will like come in to my coffee shop, and they'll be like, oh, I'll have a macchiato, and this is like a maybe not even 20-year-old white girl with like a backpack on and looked like she got off of class. I'm like, do you want a Starbucks macchiato, or do you want like a shot of espresso with like the foam on top? And she's like, wait, what's that? And then I show her the cup, and she's like, oh, no. I was like, oh, so you want a caramel latte? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. So I'm curious if you have like, if more the clientele that's coming through your doors are a little bit more educated, or just like have a little bit more knowledge on that. Because I've definitely seen that there are different coffee titans that are largely more corporatized, that have brainwashed some of the language and terminology, the double lees of the world, so to speak. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that and how you go to battle with it.
It's a mixed bill. I will say, Kent, who I talked about earlier, this will attest to how rad of a person he is. Day one, we open the cafe in Williamsville, our third location. He comes in, he's like fourth customer. He slaps down a $50 bill. He goes, I'll have a cortado, and whatever is left, the change, pay for everybody's coffee behind me until it runs out. He goes, I'm glad to have a good coffee shop in the village. And I go, damn, okay.
That's sick.
Kent is educated on coffee. I've had the caramel macchiato orders, and I've had to do exactly what you said, do the explanation of, okay, do you want a latte or do you want espresso with some foam on top? And it can be a difficult conversation sometimes, but usually everyone is pretty easygoing. And like, if you approach it with like a good attitude, it's easy. One of the things I remember from my interview that Ben said was, the customer's always right unless they're wrong. And when they're wrong, you educate them. And it's as simple as that. Like, I did have a macchiato experience that did go bad one time. Someone ordered a macchiato. I was like, oh, so like, do you want a traditional macchiato? And you know, the explanation, or do you want like a latte, like a Starbucks macchiato? And they go, oh, traditional. And I go, okay, cool. Sounds great. Like, you're a cool person, you know, like, so,
sure.
So I make it, I call it out. They come up and they go, what's this? I go, that's your macchiato. And they go, this isn't what I wanted. I go, well, I thought we discussed that you wanted it like a traditional style. And they go, no, like I need it iced with like a lot of milk and some flavor. I go, okay, so I will remake it for you, but like this isn't what we talked about. You know, it's like,
right.
Like, yeah. It's anyone that works customer service deserves like the Medal of Honor. So it's like, just to deal with like some of the shit that we have to deal with. I haven't lost my cool on anybody with anything in regards to their education on coffee. Like, people can be stubborn, but you know, like, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
To go into those kinds of things with people. But as Ben said, the customer is right always right unless they're wrong, and when they're wrong, educate them. Big thing that I will say that we have, I shouldn't say a big problem that we have, because that sounds fucking awful. But the flat white controversy. When I was being taught as a barista, I was told that the flat white is a myth and it does not exist because of like Australia and New Zealand's cafe cultures going at it about like who invented it, what it is since its conception, in quotes, conception.
Right.
So like, when people order a flat white, I always say like, what is a flat white to you? And sometimes they get like really pissy about it. And I'm like, hey dude, like, I'm not trying to test your fucking knowledge. I want to make the drink that you want to drink.
Yeah.
Because like traditionally,
this is not like you walk up and you order and then it's like, all right, for 500 points, can you tell me the country of origin this drink was made?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, because traditionally, cappuccinos are equal thirds espresso, steamed milk, and foam. Cappuccino. We serve our cappuccinos with a thinner layer of microfoam on top, which is typically perceived as a flat white, you know, more of a wet cappuccino. Right. So like, people will say, oh, I'll get a flat white, a flat what? And you're like, cool. So like, straight up, I'm not even joking. Someone ordered a flat white and I said, what is a flat white to you? And they replied with, about 8 ounces of boiling water, espresso, and then a little bit of steamed milk on top. I go, so that is an Americano Olay. That is not a flat white at all. I don't know what planet you grew up on, but this is a verbatim conversation. Right. I totally roasted this guy. No. So like, I was like, so that's not what that is. That's an Americano with, some steamed milk on top. And he goes, oh, okay. Then what's a flat white? And then I go into my, rabbit hole of it not existing. But that's like the extent of confrontation I normally have is the definition of that drink. But,
Right.
At the end of the day, like I tell people, like, I just want to make the thing that you want to drink. Because if you get what you don't want, then you're upset and I'm upset for two different reasons.
Right.
And then I have to, remake it, of course, for free because like I'm not going to charge you for something that, we had a misunderstanding on. Like,
Right.
that would just be stupid. But
yeah. And honestly, like I went into, because I haven't worked I think customer service is baked into a lot of different types of jobs versus just you're dealing with like whether you work at a grocery store or a coffee shop or whatever. Like, like I primarily shoot a lot of like real estate photography. So like I have a customer that I'm trying to do my service and be pleasantable and blah, blah, blah. But I think going into that job, I haven't worked in like that kind of customer service role like for almost 10 years. So I was kind of like, am I just going to get the, like, my milk isn't done this way, the right way enough, and like get a drink thrown in my face or something like that. I was just assuming the worst. But like, yeah, everyone's been pretty tame. And there's 9 times out of 10, there's maybe the odd, there's the oddball that like always is like really specific or is always complaining about something, and it's just kind of like shooing them out the door slowly. Like, here's your coffee. All right. Like, see you tomorrow because we're going to do this dance every single time. But 9 times out of 10, there's been a lot of like, even if the people who are very specific are like, will tell you if something is super off, but in like a nice way.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like if you're just easygoing about it and, just say like, hey, like, actually, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Cause like another thing I like to say is everyone who doesn't run a coffee shop knows how to run a coffee shop.
Break that down.
Like, yeah, it's for real, man. It's like, hey, like the reason I'm giving this drink to you this way is because we spent 5 years, not me personally, but like my owners have spent 5, almost 6 years crafting it to be this way. And this is the way that we think is best with our product that, we roast ourselves. And that's that. Like you could do it your own way at home if you want, but it's like you're coming to me and giving me money. I'm going to give you what I think is top notch.
Right.
Yeah.
So that actually intros a interesting conversation because I think like I know that I have a lot of entrepreneurial brains in my body, and I have a list of different businesses and just different things that I want to start, like both in and outside of music.
Yo, you and me both, man. Yeah,
dude. Yeah. But when it comes to, and you can talk like specifically about your own experience at Overwinter, but feel free to kind of add your own, because I totally understand what it's like to kind of, be in a certain role at a company, and you're like, but there's still like maybe a couple different things that you might want to do subtly differently, but you're like still pretty aligned with a lot of the stuff of the people that you're working for. So in your opinion, what are the 5 most important traits for a good coffee shop to have?
Dude, I love that you asked this question because whenever we tour, I am the guy that's like, I'm going to go get coffee. Like I'll find the good spot,
Right. You're the benchmark kind of person, the quality control.
Yeah. And before I answer the question, I will give a quick shout out to this website called Sprudge. I don't know if it works in Canada, but if Sprudge is a coffee slang word for espresso sludge, so it's like SPRUDGE. If you're in the States and you straight up, if you type in your search engine bar Sprudge city you are in, it'll give you the top 5 like best cafes in the area.
Oh,
It
Wait,
rocks.
before you go, because I'm literally just testing that out here. 'Cause
Yeah.
I am just curious if I
If you
search
do
Sprudge
Sprudge,
Calgary, what are the top spots?
yeah, I don't know. Like, I know it doesn't work in Europe. I'll say that. I don't know if it works in Canada. I haven't tried
No,
it.
it's showing. Monogram.
Perfect.
Shout out to them. Phil and Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that checks. Saw
Yeah.
and found. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Sick.
Sprudge is the best website ever.
Sprudge is the way. Okay.
Sprudge is the truth, the way, and the light. So whenever we tour, I will find a place to go get coffee, and Joe, our guitarist, he asked me one day, he's like, what is your criteria?
Right.
And I will break it down.
I'm ready.
You cannot. So this is definitely with a grain of salt. So take these things with a grain of salt. But
these opinions are John's and John's alone.
correct.
Yeah.
So
and sorry, we're delaying this whole thing. It's like the anticipation is very real. I will say these traits can include like the actual coffee itself, but like
totally,
it also should be the overall vibe. So
yes.
Location, architecture, like all of that is playing a part. But again, these are just the top 5 in John's humble opinion. Okay, go.
You must close at 4 p.m.
Okay. That's a very interesting first take.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you have a food menu, it needs to be like 2 things.
2 things. Okay.
2 things. Like I don't think a cafe or a coffee shop, because there's a difference between a coffee shop and a cafe. I don't think a coffee shop should be serving food. Because once you divert your attention from making the coffee, which is like your craft, once you divert it to some other form of craft, being making a sandwich, wrap, whatever, you are, why half-ass 2 things when you could full-ass 1?
True.
So you got to close at 4 p.m.
Wait, sorry. What time are you opening for sure?
6 or 7.
6 or 7. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Depends on staff, depends on location. Like we open this spot at 7, we close at 4. During the summer, we close at 5, but that's just because it's on the main strip in like the village of Williamsville. So it's like, it could be bump in later in the day.
Sure.
And have a little more staff. So we give them some more hours, So you got to close at 4. Only like limited food menu, if any, like, or none, like no food menu. If there's any food, it should just be baked goods from like another like local spot.
Okay, so closing at 4, only focus on the coffee, or focus on the coffee as much as possible. Max 2 food items. That's 2 points. Okay.
Yes, that's 2. If I walk, I don't. This isn't. I'm not trying to throw shade, but like there is a specific type of coffee that is very like visually, it's like dark and shiny and oily, and it has a specific smell. And I don't know if you enjoy this coffee or if you know people that do. Pardon me. But sorry, I'm burping like a ton right now. If I walk into a coffee shop or a cafe and it has that like really like harsh kind of like burny, oily smell, I'm out. That's number 3. But that is my personal take on. I don't really enjoy dark roasts. I don't think.
So sorry. You've walked into coffee spots, smelt the coffee, and left.
I won't leave because I'm typically with like a squad. Like
sure.
I won't be like
not this place. Start around the whole conflict.
No, like I'll get a tea or something. I won't like.
Right.
Or if I'm like, I hate to say this, but like if I'm desperate, I'll get a coffee. You know what I mean? Like it'll get me there one way or another with the caffeine. Right. So I guess you could say that's the third one.
So it's like a specific blend of coffee beans. And again, these are just your choices.
Yeah,
not
this is just me. Yeah, this is the coffee asshole takes. So I guess you could say, oh damn. Okay, I'm gonna walk to my car.
Oh, you got a low battery situation?
I got the 10% warning, but
Okay.
we can walk and talk.
Yeah.
So, and you get to see the park.
This park's nice.
Yeah, there's a waterfall.
You're very dad
that way.
mode right now with like you walking through a park
I feel like
with the mug
landscape and the landscape orientation of the phone. And you're like, also me moving will probably help me think about some of my other hot takes on cafe culture. Let's see. I do like, okay, if I walk in and man, shout out to Evan Duckett for this one. Wood paneling. If there's sideways wood panels, you're in the right spot.
On the walls or like where specifically?
Anywhere. I guess. Okay. I don't know. His location of said wood panels were not specified, but we were talking about it too. Probably a few months back, and that was one of his, and I tend to agree. Like if there's exposed wood or like exposed wood paneling of some type, probably on the wall. That's probably a good indication.
Right.
And if you walk in, so I guess you could say that's 4. I'd maybe go like, that might be 3.5 because that's not specifically mine, but it's one that I've adapted. If you walk in and you just hear like screaming milk, like going on, they're not giving that, they're not aerating that enough.
Right.
So my latte would probably be that. I don't even drink lattes. I just drink black coffee because that's what I enjoy. So I'll put that as number 4. If there's like screaming milk going on, probably not going to do it. Okay. And I will honestly say that I've had more often than not like great interactions with the staff at coffee shops that I go to and that I visit. But if the counter is typically, the counter of any cafe will probably be far away from the entry point of the door. I'm not expecting a welcome to Moe's kind of a deal, like when I walk in.
Right.
But like, if I do, that's awesome. Like, I guess acknowledgement from the barista is the 5th one, because, and that's something that we instill, I believe, pretty well in our staff, is like, if someone is at the counter, you say hello. Doesn't matter if you're talking to your coworker, if you are,
making a drink or doing whatever,
making a drink, or talking to another customer. If you're busy, you'll say like, hey, like, I'll be right with you or whatever. And like, but man, like, I've had some pretty like shitty interactions with baristas sometimes where it's like, I'll go up, be like, hey, how are you? And they'll be like, what do you want? I'm like, damn. Okay. Like,
damn.
That sucks. Like,
yeah.
I don't know who like.
I wasn't going to get my drink cold, but I guess like that's what your vibe is right now. So
I guess, yeah. So that's probably number 5, man. Like if there's not a good
friendly atmosphere,
if I'm not having a good interaction with the barista, then that's upsetting to me. You gotta be friendly.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably it.
That's
like, just
fair.
Be friendly. Yeah.
We're at Overwinter now as far as the transportation of.
Yeah. You are sitting on oat milk right now. You're sitting on a carton of oat milk.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I'm gonna hop in the back hallway. And
sure. Can I tell you my 5?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay. And I think that there's a lot of similarity, but a few differences. I think I like a lot of your answers, and a lot of which I didn't anticipate, or I was like, oh, I didn't think that is as important. I think friendly atmosphere is a for sure. Like I definitely try to do that, at least with my space, is like the minute that someone comes in, I'm just like saying, what's up? Like, hey, how's it going? Like, because then you feel seen. You're like, oh, I actually like matter to like, I haven't even ordered yet and I already feel like I'm a part of whatever. So there's that. Um, this might be a hot take, but John might be frozen. Oh no, he's back.
Sorry.
I think
This is probably what the fuck.
I want 2 to 3 milk alternatives max.
Yes.
I've gone to
I love
places
it.
that are just oat milk, and I at first was like, "Oh, that's cool," but then there's like certain people that like they need to have like I don't know, like a soy or something else. But like I currently work at a place where we have like 2% and then like 8 other things that you can sub for, and I'm like, I hate it. I hate
Yeah.
having so much of that.
I'll tell you this. We just. Oh, I'm sorry if I cut you off.
No, you're good.
We just have whole milk, half and half, oat milk, and coconut milk. That's it.
That's perfect, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's all you need.
I think as much as like I do like finding and going to check out a coffee spot that's kind of in I'll say a more unconventional area. Like there's some of my favorite coffee spots are just like kind of tucked away in like an industrial kind of area in like somewhere that I'm visiting. But I think like a good successful shop always does well when there's like a good kind of foot traffic kind of area, something, and sometimes it's like a good coffee shop can make a place more trendy. So I think like something that isn't too much of a drive out of the way is definitely something that I prefer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I've lost track of how many. I think I've done 3 at this point.
Yeah,
Milk
because you said
alternatives.
atmosphere, milk alternatives, and then the drive. Yep.
Okay. I think also like it's similar to where you were saying on the food menu side. I don't want like a list of so many things that I need to choose from. I want to be able to have like the staple stuff like the drip, Americano, latte, cappuccino, like, but I don't need to have like your own specific latte kind of thing where you add a Mars bar into it or any of that bullshit. Like, I want to like, and I'm speaking from like that's unfortunately like one of the things that like the coffee shop that I work at, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But that being said, just like having a very lean menu, I think really goes a long way for sure. Because it's like this is what we do. Like, we're not gonna do a fucking like crazy little like mixture or thing for you. And it's just like you said, like it's hyper focusing on doing something whole ass versus being half ass with a lot of different things. So I say that's number 4. And then I think I'll kind of take it back to what we were saying earlier. If I'm sitting inside, I want to have a nice ass mug. And it could be something like this, something like a nice ceramicist, or like just I want it to like I do love a good old fashioned like one of those like cafe mugs that you'll see at a lot of different coffee spots. I do appreciate that, but like sometimes when it's something that's unique to that spot, that's like I don't know, it feels like I'm in a cozy Airbnb and I'm just getting coffee from the from the coffee shop that's built into the Airbnb. I don't know. Like it adds a nice personal touch to it for sure. So those are my 5.
I like them. What was I going to comment on? What was the your lean coffee menu thing. Yeah, right. It's like that is also awesome because like what's listed is like bare bones. Coffee, latte, mocha, hot chocolate, chai, tea, and then there's like the list of alternatives and like flavors. And like I think something that like maybe not everyone gets is like you can combine things. Like they'll read the menu and just be like, because this has also happened before. Like they'll be like, "Oh, I'll have a latte," and because I am a nice person, I always ask, whole milk. Like, is dairy okay? And they're like, "Oh no, actually, oat milk." I'm like, "Got it. See, like that's up there. Cool. Like, do you want any flavors?" And they're like, "You know what? Yeah, vanilla." Like, got it. Perfect. Like, what's up there isn't necessarily like what you get, but like I'm sure you know how it is. Like, it's busy. There's a line out the door. Someone's like, "I'll have a latte," and you're like, "Fuck it, cool, latte, done. Cash out. Give me your money." Next
Right.
person.
Oh, dude, that happens so many times.
And then
I'm
it's like, you call it out. You're like, "Latte," and they're like, "Oh, I wanted this large iced with oat milk and vanilla." I'm like, "Cool. If we went over that like maybe 2 minutes ago, we would be avoiding this conversation."
right.
But it's what I enjoy about Overwinter is like we definitely encourage like no idea is really a bad idea, and that goes into like our secret menu kind of a thing. It rotates with the seasons. Pardon me. So like over this past summer, we did espresso tonics, which is something we never did before. It was awesome. We did an orange syrup, a raspberry syrup, and a ginger syrup. They were awesome.
Okay.
You could combine like, and that's the other thing. You could put the orange in a mocha. You could put the raspberry in a mocha, so you get like that like chocolatey truffle kind of a deal. Orange vanilla, raspberry vanilla. Like there's so many different combos. But like once the summer is gone, which it is, we're doing our fall menu. So there's an apple cinnamon syrup, brown sugar cardamom syrup, apple cider, and like you can have an expansive menu, but it's cool to have it rotate with.
Right.
Gosh, I'm burp machine today.
You are a burp machine.
But like,
someone cut this podcast and it's like John from Space podcast, but only when he burps, and it's like just 30 seconds of
that would be awesome. So yeah, like the menu why am I hold up, I should be charging. Why did I get yeah, I'm charging. My phone's crazy.
No,
anyway,
let me ask you this, since we're talking about seasons. Is pumpkin spice drink anything overrated or underrated? Because I'm sure you feel the pressure. It's like, okay, it's the season where we have to do it, but do we have to do it?
I'm so glad you asked this question. Personally, I'm not a big pumpkin person in general. I never loved pumpkin pie. I never was when I did like milk drinks, like lattes and stuff, it was when I was working at Overwinter, and so I never had to go to any other coffee shop really, and I never got a pumpkin thing because it wasn't desired. Mm-hmm. And what I really enjoy about Overwinter is we don't try and like follow suit with the norm, like we do alternatives to the pumpkin because everyone else does it. So we should do something just as cool, but different. Mm. And that's what like the brown sugar cardamom syrup is. Excuse me, because cardamom is like a spice in pumpkin pie. So, you use that with some brown sugar, you get that like molassesy taste with that spice, and it's awesome. Mm-hmm. But this year there was a big push from the staff to do a pumpkin syrup. And I was against it for a little while because I was like, I like not doing it because it's like what I just explained. Like we do normal, we do different things than the norm. That's what makes us different and interesting. But like the syrup that was crafted by my fellow employees fucking smacks. You know what I mean? And it's like, like, why not? You know, it's I think it is. Let me put it this way. It's overrated in the sense that it's like really only like it's really only talked about, made, and like done in this like short, like maybe 3-month stretch.
For
You know what I
sure.
mean? If it was so good, you would have it all the time.
Mhm.
It's I get that it's a seasonal thing. I get like, oh, like pumpkins, Halloween, and you know, I'm a big fall guy myself.
Mhm.
Favorite season. My birthday's in October. Like, I get it. You know, it's like I don't know if it's
Well,
an underrated
it's
versus.
funny that you say that, like, because I totally back that. Like, we are on the opposite pumpkin spectrum because I love pumpkin pie with every bone in my body. I would
Yeah,
get pumpkin pie instead of birthday cake growing up by request, because that's how much I loved it. So,
dude. Yeah, that was me with
like,
cheesecake.
yeah, dude. So, like, when, you know, over time, anytime that there's a pumpkin pastry or like something, like I'm like instant buy, like, you know, like Futurama meme, take all my money. I understand, like, when it gets reintroduced when it comes to drink standards and like, sorry, when it gets introduced as like, now it's back at blah de blah. My standards for different coffee things have definitely changed and they're a lot higher. But when I can go and get like a cold brew with like pumpkin cold foam on top, I'm like, okay, that's like kind of a guilty pleasure of mine.
Yeah,
Versus going all the way to Sugartown and getting like 2 pumps of the sugar and then the whipped cream and then the nutmeg. And it's like, it's just, there's no coffee at the end of the day. And I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
kind of when I'm getting a drink that's treating, like it's more of a treat than just like black coffee. It still needs to have that like strong coffee undertone to it for sure. For me. But yeah, I think, you know, it's I'm in the same boat as you in the mindset of like, if it was as popular as people think it is, it would be readily available all year round, despite pumpkins being able to you know, not being in season or whatever the fuck. But it's not. And I hate to make this comparison because I know I might catch some heat for it. I would argue it's the same as the McRib. It's like the McRib comes, people are excited about it, but then it goes away. Like, am I off base there?
you're based. That is very based, dude.
Pumpkin spice lattes and McRibs are the same thing.
They're the same thing.
They're the
We
same.
need to look more into this. It's
Yes.
like, damn. Yeah, you're right. Like, oh, the McRib is back. Oh fuck, I gotta go get a McRib. Oh, pumpkin spice is back. Oh fuck, I gotta go. It's yeah, yeah, yeah. Like if
And there's even more like crazier, more condensed versions of those things. There's the Shamrock Shake, and it's like, bro, you do not need to drink a green mint milkshake like smoothie for this week or this day or whatever the fuck. So, man,
are you what's your take on mint?
on mint, like
Yeah.
the flavoring or
In general, I guess I have a very very strong stance on it. That it only belongs in gum, toothpaste, and mouthwash. That's it.
okay.
No ice cream, no mint cookies, no like mint with chocolate, no like if I drank, I probably wouldn't even drink a fucking mojito because it has mint in it. You know, it's like it's to me it is a cleaning. It's a clean smell, so I associate it with cleaning. Like when I chew gum, I'm like, you know, cleaning my mouth. When I brush
Yeah,
my
you're
teeth
spitting
or I
that
use
out. You're not
mouthwash,
swallowing that. Yeah.
I'm not going to I'm not going to eat a thin mint because it's like I'm dirtying and cleaning my mouth at the same time, and then I got to like take it. I have to digest it. So
Right.
because
I've
you brought up
never-
Shamrock Shake, that's where my brain went with that. Yeah.
I've never like really thought about if mint only belongs and there's like a like there's mint teas and stuff that we have at my coffee spot, and like
Same, but I won't drink them.
Yeah, me neither. But yeah, maybe we need to like excommunicate mint from coffee and food related things, because it's a cleaning. Maybe it needs to be defined as a cleaning thing. Redefine.
Thank you. I think we're on the same page here, so that rocks.
Right.
Cool.
Okay. One of the last coffee related questions before we move on to some other things.
Yeah.
Most underrated thing on either your menu or a menu when you're like, oh, like people ordering that makes me excited that's still around, or like people are still getting that.
Wow. Wait, one more time with the question, because I think I have an answer, but it may be like an offshoot answer.
Right. I asked most underrated thing that someone might order at a coffee shop.
Anything that's decaf. If you order a decaf latte, cappuccino, decaf cup of coffee, I fuck with you. That person is the most based person, because they love coffee more than anybody. They're drinking it for the taste. They're not drinking it to get like super ripped on caffeine. They're not trying to get a buzz. Maybe their body can't handle it. You know what I mean? Those are the people that I'm like, you get it. Like those people get it. Like you're drinking coffee because you like how it tastes. You're still enjoying the norms of like the milk drinks or whatever, but like that's it. If you drink it, it's decaf all the time. Most underrated thing at any cafe. And I will say it is one of my 3, maybe this ties back to like my 5 cafe things, but like
right.
It is one of my like defining criteria of a coffee shop, a roastery, cafe, whatever. If you have good decaf, if you have good chai, and if your drip coffee is good. If your drip coffee is good, if your drip coffee is bad, you fucked up one of the simplest things.
Right.
If your chai is good, you know how to use spices. Like your staff is a good palate, or like your bar manager, the person that ran your bar program knows what the fuck they're doing. And if you have good decaf, that means you care about everybody. So, yeah.
Well, that was literally the last thing I was expecting, but like the way that you explained that was so perfect, because like, yeah, you're totally right that if someone is coming in, they're like, I love the idea of getting a cup of coffee and the taste and everything about it, just minus the caffeine component. And that could be for whatever amount of reasons, but I'm still committed to doing that, but just decaf. Yeah. Wow. That was a beautiful answer.
Thank you.
One last thing. I know I said that thing was the last thing, but because you brought up chai, and I'm a very big component, or I'm a very big fan of like my summer drink of all time is an iced dirty chai. I've had, but I feel like a dirty chai, a chai latte in general, or a dirty chai, if you're going to lump that in, is like a harder drink to make. So when it's like when it's fucked up, it tastes extra bad.
Yeah.
But when it's like super good, it's like, it's one of the best things of all time. I've had chais that I'm like, people have made it with like chai tea instead. And I'm like, I was like, this is just god awful. So I don't know if you have any takes on that when it comes to like, if there's like more high risk, high reward with like certain things when it comes to like, oh, if someone can do this, then it's like life-changing drink level shit.
I think, I don't know, chai rocks. I've always fucked with chai. We make our own chai concentrate in house. I made 4 batches today. I will go and you're standing like probably at most 10 feet away from the pot at all times. So like,
Right.
it's like the bonfire. Like I'll go home smelling like chai because like I was around it for so long today. It's, and like I said, it's one of those like definitive things about the cafe. And like, I don't like dirty chais. I think the mixing of the espresso adds this like kind of unique flavor that my brain just doesn't get. But I don't know. I think I may have lost my train of thought, but
That's okay.
like,
honestly, I just selfishly wanted to mention how much I love dirty chais, and like we can keep moving on if anything.
They are a good drink. I will say that. And like with our like I mentioned earlier, we were doing an apple cinnamon syrup. You put that in an iced chai. It's insane. It's crazy, dude.
You're about to make me get in my car and drive down to Buffalo right now.
You should. Yeah.
Honestly, I might like to do that like one of these days before I move back. But that's conversation for another time. Okay. We have 3 more questions because I'm realizing that this podcast has just been flowing so quickly and I want to be sensitive of your time.
Yeah, no, you're good.
These are hard transition questions. So
Word.
Obviously, I know that you're a man that fucks with the Star Wars. And I knew that when I saw you wearing that Revenge of the Sith shirt from Hold Your Ground last year. I was like, this is my kind of fucking guy. And I personally only have the one Phantom Menace shirt, which like is one of my favorite shirts of all time. The fact that they got the fucking screen grab from the movie on the shit is like so great. Do you have other Star Wars shirts or just the one specifically?
I do. I have 5. I have 5.
You have 5?
Yes. So I'll go into great detail of them all.
Okay.
So it's the reason I have the Revenge of the Sith one was because I'm not even going to front. I don't know what band it was, but it's either a band that I follow or someone that popped up on my Instagram Explore page. I saw their guitar player shredding in that shirt, and I go, I need that. I immediately went on eBay, found one, instant purchase, and I got it. And I think that was what sparked my like my hunt, my hunts for shirts. So for my birthday, or I'm trying to think. Okay. So Jenna, my girlfriend, she is also a huge Star Wars buff. So her favorite villain is Darth Maul. So for Christmas one year, I was gonna get her like a nice Darth Maul shirt. And I was being a good boy. I was doing my Christmas shopping in like fucking October. Like I was like, I'm gonna get it done, out of the way, don't have to think about it, whatever. Right. So I found the shirt on eBay and I was like, sweet. Like I get paid on Friday, I'll save it. It'll be there. No one else is gonna buy this. Friday comes, it's not there. And I go, what? I was like, I was mortified. I was like, damn, dude, like this sucks. Like this was like it was gonna be a great gift, whatever. I found another one, different style, but I found another Darth Maul shirt. And I got it for her. Fast forward, it's my birthday, and my friend Dan, who drums in space, he goes, hey, like I got you something. I go, oh, thanks. And it's that shirt. It's the shirt that I was gonna get.
He bought it?
I think so. It had to be, because I told him the story. He goes, because he got it on eBay. Like we didn't go into like who sold it or whatever, but I was like, you're
like, pull up the profile right now. Let's cross-reference the item numbers.
So that was, I think, my second acquisition. And then there's a vintage store in Buffalo called Queen City Vintage, or My Cousin Vintage. Well, there's 2, but I went to My Cousin Vintage for this. They posted like a Phantom Menace shirt that had like the one of the like space battles on it with the droid fighter. I'm being such a bad nerd right now, but I had this Lego model growing up.
It's the one that stands up.
Yes, yeah, it
well.
can stand up, and then it goes like that. Yeah. So like it was that in space, and I was like, "Yo, that's dope." So I got that one, and then I got 2 more off eBay. I got the Revenge of the Sith one that I have, with like the 2 red bars, and it says Revenge of the Sith in the middle. I got another one, same style, but it says Return of the Jedi. And then I have a Phantom Menace, Pepsi promotional T-shirt. So like chest pocket top left says Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace. On the sleeve is the Pepsi print, and on the back is like just like the heads of like, you know, Queen Amidala, like young Anakin, Qui-Gon, young Obi-Wan, maybe Darth Maul. And those are my 5.
Damn.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a collection. Even a small collection at that, but like, you know, quality over quantity for sure.
Well, I don't know if you've seen it, but I have my nerd room. I'll send you pictures of that because that's a little bit crazier than than the shirts I have. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I have gotten like there's a couple different like I think on the nerd side of me, like there's a couple you know, designers and people that do like bootleg runs of like different things. So like I got a Halo shirt, I got a fucking Star Wars shirt. There's one. I bought a Splinter Cell Conviction shirt at a vintage like pop-up store. I was like, what? Why do you have my favorite Splinter Cell game in my perfect size? Like, sign me up. So I like that's like a subtle hobby of mine as well, of just collecting all these like really niche little video game things. Speaking of Star Wars specifically, and I have a feeling that if we did a part 2 podcast, we could only talk about Star Wars for sure.
Just tell me when.
Yeah, just tell me when. Let's schedule it right now, actually.
Sure.
I'm thinking about when my friend Blaine, who plays in a band from Toronto called Spirit of Vengeance, when he came on the podcast, we talked a lot about Star Wars, his request as well. But I want to ask you a similar question that we hit on. All the main series, I guess, if we're including Rogue One, out of the 10 main Star Wars movies, how do you best or worst to best all of those?
Well,
we're excluding like so much when it comes to like the shows and all of that, but we're thinking of like the movies.
There's 11. We cannot forget Solo. It's I know some.
How dare you mention that?
I know some may say it's like a poor excuse for a movie. I just think it wasn't marketed well, and it was put out too soon because, you know, like that was because episode 7 dropped, we had a year off, and then it was 8, and then Solo,
right,
and then it was 9. So it's like, if you waited a little longer, maybe people would have perceived it a little more. They were getting a lot of Star Wars all of that time. But worst to best,
we got to start at the bottom of the barrel and work our way up to the cream of the crop.
This is tough, dude. I don't know if I liked this question. This is so okay. I will do my best here, but I will say I definitely, as I'm sure you do and other people, have a very like strong emotional and like a very just strong attachment to some of those movies, and they're on my list in that order for that reason, most likely. Can I go best to worst? I think that might help.
Sure, I'll allow it. We're so deep into the pod, so it's like I'm not gonna be like, no, only worst to best.
Okay, so favorite goated all time, Return of the Jedi. It is the movie that I associate my introduction to Star Wars with. Luke Skywalker, obvious childhood hero of mine. You know, and it was awesome. I don't know. Endor is just really cool to me. I love like the nature planet, you know, very cool.
we started the podcast in the forest. You know, it's obvious that
Yes.
Andor's number one planet.
So we'll go Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back. That movie is like insane. It's just very good. Visuals amazing. Revenge of the Sith.
I knew that you were gonna say Revenge of the Sith. I knew that you were gonna jump back to the prequels versus playing it safe and saying A New Hope or something. But I think it's for sure the right call. Like, Revenge of the Sith is such a fantastic Star Wars movie.
Third on the list, Episode 3. I think it's kind of meant to be there, our Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith. Let's go Rogue One. Rogue One right below there.
I feel like Rogue One would be higher if it was like a part of the main story.
Yeah.
Like it is it's my favorite Disney like Star Wars adaptation. Because I have to look at it in like separate halves, whereas like this is George Lucas's vision, and then this is a bunch of corporate there's a bunch of like too many cooks in the kitchen, arguably.
Yes.
But that movie is fantastic. So,
dude, phenomenal. Yes.
The gears are turning.
They are.
Said.
I gotta go. Probably The Force Awakens under there. Episode 7. I'm not wrong there. That's yeah. That was, and I'm not even kidding, Jenna and I's first 5 dates. We saw that movie 5 times.
Wow.
It was awesome. It was one of our the very first conversation we had with each other was the whole Jar Jar Binks is the ultimate Sith Lord kind of a thing.
Yeah, Darth Jar Jar.
Yeah, so
yes, I believe.
Who doesn't? And if you don't, you're wrong. So so that is a very big that's a very important life movie to me. But I also really liked it. Start of a new a new trilogy or storyline or however you want to chop it up. But under there, I'll probably go Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I love clones. That's why I just I think the clone army and Camino is super dope. Also kind of in my more formative years, those were coming out.
Right.
So that one.
It is wild that New Hope and Phantom Menace are have not seen this list yet to me. And again, this is your own list. I'm just,
So, okay, I'll put an asterisk next to the entire thing. And I'll tell you why. I truthfully was not prepared for this question.
No,
so
it is a very hard question to answer on the spot.
Yes,
for
but
sure.
On the Spy Tour, I'll download all of the movies and I'll watch them sequentially, and I'll give you a list, a true hey, I just watched all 11 movies. Here's my list. Again,
that's real dedication to the craft there.
Thank you. Yeah. So we'll probably so Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, Force Awakens, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah, or Attack of the Clones. Yeah,
we'll go probably A New Hope, Phantom Menace. And then I think 8, 9, and Solo might just be tied for last.
Okay, I can live with that.
And
I'm Last Jedi needs to be dead last, in some degree, but
I
can live with that.
I'm a very optimist
Star Wars fan. I like, trust me, The Last Jedi with changing directors, questionable. Also, can you hear and or see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay, you were frozen for a minute. Sorry.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah.
I thought everything went wrong again.
You have to get
so-
another device and another.
Yeah.
We're good.
I would have grabbed like the iPad from the POS and just like hopped on Zoom. So like those like I'm a very optimistic Star Wars fan in the viewpoint of like I'm like I hate to say that I'm trying to like play devil's advocate and see it from like the Disney corporate standpoint, like, hey, we got to make movies to make money. Like, I'm not trying to look at it from that lens, but I'm looking at it from like, okay, the true OG original trilogy heads that were hating on the prequels when they were first coming out are now the people that were alive when the prequels were coming out at a young age, me, that are now hating on the sequels. So like the audiences are shifting. There's different things that like are being taught and like used in the movies. So like I don't to say that I don't like any Star Wars movies is I enjoy all of them. I don't love all of them, but I will sit down and I will enjoy them. I'll watch them. And that's what I have to say about that.
Yeah. And I appreciate you kind of being more optimistic, because there's definitely like some Star Wars channels that I've specifically subscribed to, because it's like just them talking so critically about it allows me to feel a little bit of like, oh, like I'm not the only one who's just like nostalgically disappointed off of whatever. But
Yeah.
I will also say a key component in that whole comparison of, people hating on the prequels versus, is that just the cycle repeating? A huge differentiator is like you don't have a single creative vision.
Yes.
Where it's like now you have the creative vision of, J.J. Abrams to the CEO of Disney to like all these different things, and they're like trying to make everyone happy. But again, I think it honestly is something where it's like too many cooks in the kitchen. I will say, what's his name? I think it's Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni
is the he's with the stuff that he's done. Like if he was given a full trilogy, I feel like that. And I'm thinking about this just because I've been watching the Ahsoka show. No spoilers because I'm an episode behind. But
okay.
I've unfortunately like seen glimpses of things. I'm like, oh my God, like this episode's gonna be crazy. But I feel like the Ahsoka show has felt the most like magical Star Wars that I've seen in a long, long time. Even in the first like 2 episodes when it dropped. So I'm hoping that this trilogy was just kind of like okay, that was not what we were supposed to do, since buying inarguably one of the biggest IPs of the world. Maybe we do this now, and then that actually hits. And maybe it's Dave Filoni or it's a combo of a couple other people, but I just think George, even though a lot of people like criticize him to a degree of kind of being like really hard-headed when it came to his vision, it was his vision. And I feel like obviously not every single thing was perfect, but I think he just had a more net positive with a lot of his ideas versus what we've seen in the last 3 movies. So that's the only thing I wanted to say on that front.
I agree with you. Yeah, and that's like it totally makes sense when you have like if you have one guy that has this vision that's like this is what it's going to be, and he's just like taking control, and that's it. Like, I guess you maybe like with the Disney thing, there's more people to blame, and it seems like there's more of like, again, just back to the too many cooks thing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to have you watch all of the movies again and give me a more, okay, I've crunched all the numbers and here are my findings.
Yeah.
John, I have one other question before we start to head towards the wrap. And I would be remiss not to ask this knowing this information. So I like to do a lot of research for my interviews. And, you know, sometimes it's like, it's nice to know, you know, the what ifs of the people that are coming on the podcast, as far as like, oh, like if they didn't find music or they didn't do coffee, like where would they be? So can you tell me about almost becoming the mascot for the Buffalo Sabres?
Whoa. Okay, Nardwar. I mean, like, cool. This is great. I was. This is awesome. Holy shit. Okay, so
the fact that this is even like a real deal thing that I can talk to you about is amazing. So.
I know. So I was this was pre-Overwinter.
And I just want to say, this is why the podcast people, we save the best for last.
Yes.
It's shit like this, and then the mosh story, and then we wrap. So listen to the whole podcast episode, not just like the first 30 minutes. Anyways, Buffalo Sabres, you being the mascot.
Yeah, so I was this was pre-Overwinter, but I was bar backing at a bar called the Draft Room, which is like, it's like a stone's throw from the Sabres Arena. I don't know what it's called now. It's been like HSBC, First Niagara, Pepsi Center, or not the Pepsi Center, regardless, where the Sabres play. It's stone's throw away. So and the bar was ran by the Pagulas.
The KeyBank Center now?
It's KeyBank now.
Yeah,
thank you.
Cool.
The Draft Room it's not anymore, was owned by the Pagulas when I was working there. And, it was just like basically where you went to before and after Sabres game, Bandits game, any concert that was at KeyBank. That's where you went. And I was bar backing at the time. And my cousin Todd works for the Sabres. He does something in the IT department. I'm not entirely sure what, but he's like, hey, do you want to do this? There's an opening. He's like, you should interview. I was like, I guess so. I mean, like, I don't really know what this will entail, but like, it'll pay better than what my bar backing shifts do, like, and so I was kind of just like, why not? Like, why the fuck not? Like, so I go in for the interview and I think I was really only playing in two bands. I still play in two bands, but it's two different bands. I was only playing in two other bands at the time.
Right.
And I was, they were going into how the position of Sabretooth is more than just like putting on the costume. And me saying that to you is like, you're probably thinking like, oh yeah, like you got to like be the entertainer. And it's like, yes, but like there's also, excuse me, like an office side. Like you are organizing meet and greets. You are, you're doing desk work as well. Like
you got to be your own hype man to behind the scenes to a degree.
Yes, it's not just like you put on the suit at the games and you go do the thing. It's like there's also like a 9 to 5 behind it.
Oh, interesting.
And like I didn't know that. I thought it was just straight up like put on
get in the suit and make everyone's day, and that's it.
Yeah, and then they were going on to tell me like there are multiple people that wear the suits, plural. So like,
right.
If you're ever at a game and you're like, if you're sitting up in the 300s and like Sabretooth or whoever your mascot is like next to you, and then like a quick play on the ice happens and he's like fucking in the 100th on the other side of the arena, there's two or three people.
There's no teleportation, there's no back doors.
Yeah. So like I was like, okay, so like, and they're like, yeah, a lot, like not most of them, but like they are usually doing the grunt work, but like off-site events, you're the one doing them and like all that other stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I put on my resume that like I was a touring musician. Like it wasn't much at the time. It was just like DIY tours and stuff like that. But that it's more or less just like a conversation starter. And so also going into the interview via the email chain that I had, I was told that it was just going to be me and 2 other people. Okay. So I'm like, low pressure. But like, I go in, I'm like, hey, I'm here for the interview. And they're like, oh, cool. Come on back. I walk into this huge boardroom with 8 people sitting at this giant table. I go, what is happening? I'm like, there were too many of you here to be making the decision. Like it's like, what the fuck? So I'm like scared shitless because there's, it quadrupled, it went from 2 to 8 people. And, so, but the main dude that was running the interview was like, oh, so like it says that you're a touring musician, like what do you play? And, just talk about bass and all that stuff. And they go, cool. So, what do you think of John Mayer? I was like, oh, like, I think he's a really great guitar player. I've seen him live before, really holds up. Yada, yada. He goes, cool. Interview over. I go, excuse me? He goes, I hate John Mayer. I go,
what?
Okay. And like, at this point, it's just kind of like, what do you say? And like, and he kind of like just laughed it off and he's like, okay, we can move on. I go, so it's not over. And he goes, no. He's like, I'm joking. He's like, but I don't like John Mayer. I was like, oh,
he's like, never mention it again. He's like, bro, you brought it up. Like,
yeah, I know.
John Mayer like shit on your lawn. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So that was shocking. But then I can't ice skate. And that's like kind of a big thing. If you're going to be the mascot of a hockey team, is you got to know how to ice skate. So
that's not like we want this kind of diploma for. It's like you need to be on the ice and skate.
Yeah, and so I think like my reply for when they were like, "Can you ice skate?" I think I was like either, I could do my best or like I could give it a shot or something like that.
Yeah.
Like dodging the question of like, "Can you?" So but the question was, where do you think my life would be if that was my job?
I don't think we would be sitting here, honestly.
So part of me thinks we would.
Okay.
And I'll explain. So like this was pre-pandemic.
Well, you definitely wouldn't be sitting in the hallway of the coffee shop that you work at. Well, it would be somewhere else.
This is where I think like it possibly could have. I think there's still, so like this was pre-pandemic. And I was still like this was when I was a coffee asshole. I was like, like still getting into it and stuff. And I was going to the Overwinter that's downtown, that was like down the street from my practice space. And that's where I met my coworker Sydney, who manages the Elmwood spot. And like I would probably still go there often even if I had the job, because it was downtown and like the arena's downtown. That'd probably be the place for me to go get coffee. So I'd probably still be interested in that world. And then, I remember when I was working, when like no one really still knew what was going on, but places were shutting down. And like, I was working when the NHL was like, we're suspending all games. And I was just like, crazy, because there's a game tonight and now it's not happening. So like, if I got the job and the pandemic still happened, I would probably have gotten laid off. And then at that point, I would have been like, okay, I'm not going to go back to the draft room because it's not that I didn't enjoy it, but like, it was like, if I quit while I was bar backing, that would still be my entry level, where I had worked my way up to bartending and like working in the speakeasy and stuff. Right. I wouldn't have had that like seniority or anything. So I probably would have reached out to Overwinter and been like, hey, so
if anything, because of the pandemic, it would have literally just been a little side quest of your life.
I would like to think so. I would hope so. Because like, I don't think he would have, or whoever Sabretooth was during that time, like really would have done anything or like had any.
Where's he right now?
No clue. Yeah. So,
Or where are they?
Yeah.
Saying that there's multiple of them.
Yes. Where are the multiple of the Sabertooth?
Yeah.
But I would like to think that I'd still be where I am. That would be cool.
Yeah. And like, as soon as, so I have to shout out Lexi for giving me some of the behind the scenes of that. Because I always like to kind of just ask the bandmates and be like, what's something that would be like, how the fuck do you know that? And that was like, okay, that has to be in the episode. But also it's interesting because when I was growing up and getting through a lot of this music through like a lot of like the Christian, like hardcore, metalcore kind of stuff, the Chariot was like a huge band. And when I learned that the bassist of the Chariot was like, I forget the team that he was a mascot for, but he's like one of the most energetic people that I have ever seen live. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense for him to put on like a full suit and just do that in a contextualized way for a fucking football game or whatever the fuck. So, so shout out to anyone listening who does mascotting as their 9 to 5. You're doing the Lord's work. I'll say that.
For real. Yeah.
For real. John, we've been talking for over 2 hours, so I want to make sure that we've gone from the park to the coffee spot. How we end every single podcast here is a favorite mosh story that you would like to end on, and then we'll close off here.
Like personal mosh or like any?
It could be something that you did, something that just happened to you, space show, just a show you were at, whatever's first to your head.
It immediately what came to my mind was when we played with Comeback Kid in Europe. We played a really tiny club in Slovenia, and a little backstory. I bounce. If you've seen Space before, I bounce around. I have a good time. I love like running around and doing tricks and whatever. But like, I had never like two-stepped before in my life. I didn't understand the physics and like how the body is supposed to move when people do it. It always fascinated me, and I'm just like, it's so fucking dope that people could just like effortlessly do this. Because like,
right.
Anyway, so we're playing this club in Slovenia. Energy's high. We're all having a good time. Really like basement of a bar, maybe, like, I don't know, packed out. I'm loving it. We're all having a good time. And I'm just like, I'm going to stage dive because I was just like, fuck it. Like, we're all having a good time.
Yeah.
And I just stage dove, and I immediately just like started two-stepping and then was moshing. And I was like, wait a minute, how did all of that just happen? Because like my body just knew what to do, and I was just like, oh man, like I'm doing it. Like I'm like, Bob, look, I was like, I was so stoked. I was like,
it's like it unlocked. You had a Pokemon evolution as you were doing the thing.
Yes,
like as it was going.
Yeah,
look at you.
Dude, it was coolest moment of my life. Probably not, but like it was definitely like really cool. It was just like you said, it just like unlocked, and like my body understood how to move. And since then, I don't want to sound elitist, but like I don't usually mosh or two-step when I'm like on tour or like playing a show, because like I fear that if I like get hurt while doing that, it may like I may not be able to perform, especially like early on in the tour, and we have like 30 days to go. It's like, well, I just like,
dude, that's like, I think if you're 18 or 19 years old and you're like on tour and you want to mosh for every single set of the band you're touring with, like, despite if something were to go wrong, like you have enough youthfulness in you to be able to like carry it out. But when you're in your late 20s to like even into your 30s, like myself, like I'm like, everything is calculated off of like amount of time and energy that I'm spending doing whatever the fuck for a show. So
yeah,
I do not blame you one bit there.
And it's funny you say calculated, because like on my end, like when when you tour, you typically play like the same set every night for, X amount of days. Like, and along with that, my movements are calculated and choreographed. I jump at this point, I spin at this point, I kick at this point, and like I two-step at this point on stage. Like, it's like I've choreographed my part. I know how much energy to exert and for, the duration of time, and like,
right.
That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like but since that moment in Slovenia, I have like been trying to like teach myself how to two-step. It's not great, but it's always, I always hit it in the one part in Bad Energy, like right before like the verse kicks in. That's like that's my spot.
Yeah. Well, when people say go to your happy place, that moment in Slovenia is the happy place when it comes to remembering how everything translated there.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel like honestly we could have been chatting for like 4 more hours, but I feel like two and change is good for me. At least for this one. I would love to, do a part 2 next season or something like that. I'm sure that it's just always nice to be able to have, the one-on-one time. Because sometimes at a fest it's like you're literally just bouncing around, and it was just really cool to hear a lot of your story and like your perspective on a lot of this stuff. And a lot of the coffee stuff making me want to drive to Buffalo. I'll just say that. John, nice. All the links for what you're up to, all your bands, all the Overwinter stuff will be in the description, in the show notes. Anything you want to shout out, send the people off on, or plug before we go?
My 2 least favorite things in the world are traffic and hiccups. I think.
Funny that burping isn't on there. Hiccups are a form of burping.
Yeah, but sometimes it goes on for too long and it just gets.
I don't like either of those things as well, and I feel like my hatred towards traffic has only grown since moving to Ontario. So
yeah. There are probably worse things in here. They'd probably be up there, but those are the 2 that I endure.
World hunger.
Yeah, war. But those are the 2 that I face.
Okay.
Most often, I think.
Okay. Well, I hope that
weird send off there, but
well, yeah. I hope at the very least that no hiccups. Knock on wood, no hiccups for the rest of the day. Let alone minimal traffic that you might need to face on your way home. Thank you again for chatting with me, John. This was like very, very fun time with you.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast.